Before we start, I wish to say hello to a dear, dear person, Scott. And it is my pleasure, a big one, to see you here.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for
Thank you for your invitation.
Later we'll introduce you and
Thank you.
all that stuff.
Thank you.
We'll do something we haven't done for a while, I don't believe. The invocation. We direct our thought to that power which is the ultimate reality and ask that our minds and our vision be uplifted to conceive that which is unknowable to us now. May our bodies open to admit eternity. May our minds and hearts become part of that great dust. Let our beings long for the blessed distant star. Let us salute that in each other which is divine. O light of that distant star, illuminate the path before us and bring to our lips the songs of the great voyage. That goes back to 1989. I'll have to repair this. So let's take a few moments to say hello to ourselves again. So often during our days, we really don't have or make too much time to say hello to that individual whom we loosely refer to as ourselves. And we take a moment to watch and look at other people. What have they done since we last saw them? What has happened to all these lives? Because something happens every hour. Who is that man or woman sitting next to us? Who is it really? Past the name, past the occupation. Who are they? And then we have to ask, who are ourselves? Who's the man or woman sitting there that refers to itself as I or me? Does I or me ever hold I or me's hand for a moment? That I or me that is holding that hand and is having its hand held is someone that had so many things in their history. That's the little boy or the little girl who did this, or said that, or played with a particular toy, or wished they had a particular toy. And in these moments that we have right now, we can say hello to that individual. I care. I care for you. We can even say, I need you. I not only need what you are and what you have been, I need what you will be. You're going to walk into something inexplicable, wondrous, unbelievable. That is the very next moment. There, boom, another moment. People walked into it. Are we going to make this new moment pretty much what the old one was? Because there's the opportunity. To greet this moment in its virginity. Did we just walk through time together? I remember you from 5 minutes ago. Have I changed much? Is it something like standing beneath a waterfall and being cascaded by moments and moments and time, and it washes over and it purifies? To miss the mark is the ancient definition of sin. Is that so far from missing the moment? That the other part of the self turns and says, "You forgot me. You forgot me." As you do so very often, you forgot me. Perhaps that's why from moment or time the individual puts their hands up to their heads and says, "Who am I?" Who am I? Am I the person I forgot 5 minutes ago, 5 seconds ago, or 5 years ago? Do we ever hold that hand and say, "What have you done in the last 5 years? How has it been?" Is that what finding ourselves is something about? Perhaps Pooh Bear could change things and say, "And the more I looked, the more I was there." You're the little kid from the East Bronx, my goodness. What did you do? What happened to you? That's why sometimes we work having a person get up and just tell us their life story. It's interesting to us, and I'm sure it's interesting to them, maybe more interesting to them. That's what's so wonderful about telling yourself your life story. Home Avenue went this way, and Intervale went that way, and Southern Boulevard snaked around here. And in the afternoons, a kibbutz of little old ladies sat in their chairs at the bank to get the sun and talk. And past them, young boys and girls, more boys. They would walk past with their saxophone cases. And walk up to the first mezzanine of stores that had windows, something like this, that opened out into East 174th Street. And throughout most of the day and into the evening, you could hear the sound of saxophones. The lessons were inexpensive then. I think $1.50, maybe $2. Eventually they went up to $3, but that was later on. And some of the boys practiced very, very hard. They really practiced a lot. Some didn't practice all that much. Some of them practiced a lot because they knew that just like that the phone could ring. There was something called big swing bands then that were famous and well known. And one of them might call you. And then you would be out of the Bronx and on the road. And maybe you'd go to Chicago or Detroit. Or Hollywood. Hollywood. It didn't happen to everyone, but it did happen to this particular kid who was here last week. Taking his lesson in the same room that you are now. And the teacher would know he wouldn't be saying what he's saying to you. To you he's saying, don't you practice? Been on the same page now for 3 weeks. He might say, that other guy, he was wonderful. When he played, the heavens opened. Do you want to be where he is today? You have to practice. Where is he today? I just heard from him. He's in Chicago. At a great ballroom. And he's making a lot of money. And all the girls look at him. The girls look at him. The girls look at him. Do you think that could ever happen to me? He practices all the time. And throughout the years, the boys changed and new boys came, and there were less of the new boys than the old boys, and the lessons went up to 250, something like that. And the little old ladies that sat there taking the sun in the afternoon, some of them passed on. And the neighborhood changed a little bit. But the boys would maybe be talking, and they'll say, "Did you ever hear him in person?" Who? Stan Getz. Stanley Getz. Yeah, he was right here, right where we're standing now. When he was here, the lessons were $1. And he practiced. What did he practice? And he got out of the Bronx. And he took his mother and father with him. They didn't like it so much they came back. But he stayed. And all over the world, everyone knew of him. And he didn't go back to the Bronx. No. Bought himself a beautiful home in Laguna Beach. And there was another boy, the same age, who lived about 2 blocks away. And he always adored Cary Grant. Did he love Cary Grant? And he wanted to be an actor, but joined the Navy. Stayed in the Navy, came out, still wanted to be an actor, still wanted to be like Cary Grant. He kept at it, and one day he was in a movie with Cary Grant. And he said that was the thrill of his life, to be in a movie with Cary Grant. He was such a good-looking guy. His name was Anthony Curtis. And he also got out of the Bronx and went to Hollywood. They didn't have a passing desire to get out of where they were. They didn't have a passing desire to be what they became. And now you all know the next line. They had a burning desire to get out of the ranks. And they did. And one of those other boys up at the studio was Red Press, known as Seymour Press. Became Red Press. And he became the leading contractor of musicians in all the Broadway shows. Maybe he's still there, if he's still alive. He's getting a lot slower than he used to be because he's got to be nuzzling 83. But I know he was there 3 years ago. Where and how, from where did these young people get that hunger? The hunger. No, not one of them wanted to have a full-time career forever in Macy's, and when you're 65, they retired you. Now when you're 64, they shoot you. That's the hunger. They say in certain quarters that the universe is beholden to you. That if you want something so much that the universe can hear your words. And if you try so very, very hard to get out of the Bronx or do something, that the universe has to give you what you ask for. Not if it's in the mood. It has to give you. Because that wanting, that asking, that idea goes back so many hundreds of years to a mountaintop in Greece. Where they went to sit and pray. And the name for the prayers, they said, were the eternal prayers. To pray without stopping. All day and all night. And behind every thought is the knowledge that an entity is listening. like Stan practiced, the monks, they speak. Bless you. Don't have to. Don't have to. Don't have to. There is an ongoing question in the people who work here. If I say the question, everyone will know that they've asked it many times. But we have among us a terrific question asker. His name is Dushan. Dushan always asks a question. And you have asked so many times, what does it mean that a man cannot do? Would you ask me once more so that I can tell you?
Please, if you know, tell me. Tell us. What does it mean that a man cannot do? I need to know.
By himself, a man can do nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Not even breathe, not walk, not think, nothing. Zero. He needs the hand of God with everything he does in this world. Without the hand of God, we fall on the floor, not dead, lifeless. And in our moments of folly, we would like to be able to do. We would like not to have to depend upon this entity. To be free, to be alone, to be able to do. And cannot do. Cannot do. Well then, if it cannot be that we can be alone without the entity to let us do, then at least let's not think about it. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did that, I'm doing this. I did everything in my life. But if, like the monks on the Greek mountain where you were, and today I was using the Tai Chi rules, you brought me back. Always embedded in the thought, I am picking up a piece of paper because God allows me to. I am putting down this paper because God allows me to move my hands, to breathe air. There is nothing that I can do or think that does not include a power so much greater than myself that it is not understandable. Saint John Chrysostom, one of the rulers of ancient times, said that what we speak of is so far beyond the capacity of our mind that it is unknowable. It is that nameless, faceless something that empowers everything. And in certain traditions, the name is not spoken. When that goes through every thought in your mind, then you will know. At this point you have heard, but you don't know yet. When it comes to your mind, the moment that the eyes open, another day. I have been given another day of life. Been given. I didn't demand it. I didn't create it. I didn't steal it. I have been given. Now, what will I do with it? Shall I throw it on the floor? That's one of the mysteries in the classic writings that a man cannot do. He has no existence without that source, that battery of life. You didn't think anything, you didn't do anything. It was given to you. All this was given to us. And how displeased we all are. It's not good enough. I want it different. If that power knew what I want and what I need, it would be different. It doesn't know. That's supreme ignorance, not to know what I need. In the darkness, in the total void, there are angels there and other entities. It's not such a total void. The time arrives for one of the entities to visit Earth, to come to this kind of matter, not to be invisible, to matter. It comes to learn. It comes to experience. It comes as part of the training and development of something called a soul. Where it is born is already determined by what the soul needs. As is the time, the place, the entire. and the soul is born. For the purpose of experiencing what it needs to experience in order to go further in its evolution. Isn't that difficult to swallow? All the things that I abhorred were things I needed. And the tears, and the pain, and the disappointment. Did I ever think for a moment that I do, that I created? It is done for me to experience, for me to try and to fail, to try and to succeed, to want and receive, to not want and receive. And my task becomes so simple. Power that be. What do you wish next in my life? I wish to be strong, as people are. We want to be strong, to master ourselves. What is that step of mastery that says, whatever happened to me, I realize was sent for me as part of my evolution? Then it all begins to make some kind of sense. That all I had to do was to be grateful for the things that happened to me. What I liked and what I feared. And then Zarathustra reminds us through the voice of Nietzsche. Was that life? Well, once again. Let me live it once again. And in another analogy, the streets will be the same. But in your heart, you will have left the Bronx. The man that sits here is a work of beauty and art and magic. How come he doesn't fall on the floor, lifeless and motionless? Because he has life. And who on earth is wise enough to be able to give life to something that has stopped living, or that has not even started living? thinking that in our prayers we want at different levels of wanting. Send me, give me, fix me. How often do we say thank you? Thank you. Thank you for all I have received and continue to receive. Is there anything I could do for you? Do we ever think of payback? Because when she realizes that she is not alone ever, for one instant, for one fraction of an instant, the realization of that takes away loneliness forever. There is no more being alone ever. But who does that? Do we realize that our mind is under constant invasion from something that 1,000 years ago used to be called demons? An old word. The demons invade the mind and cover all thoughts of gratitude, all thoughts of the wonderful. They make us what we are, forgetful. What we are. No need to wonder, because one man is pretty much the same as another. What we are. That's why the old masters spoke again and again and again about guarding the mind. Except they called it the heart, because you and I have to maybe speak again about the intellectual center, which is not what I believe, which is not what we learned years ago. On guard. Because the demons come under such sweet and marvelous and wonderful guises. They come with the odors of food, with the promises of sensation and satisfaction and hunger of the body. They come with dreams of satisfied ambitions. All that to hold the mind in the grip of the world around us. We ask ourselves, what percentage of our day, of our life, is spent upon thoughts of this world? And what percentage of our thoughts is spent upon making contact with that force which gives us our life? Because all the things that we see are all marching towards their death. For some things it'll take 5,000 years or 10,000 or 20,000, but they are on the way. And for us, 60, 70, 80, 90, we're on the way. Can we turn our mind into something eternal? I'll write about the intellect. I don't know whether the difference came in translation, because the books were written in a different language. I'm thinking of that which is called the intellect, but 1,000 years ago it was called intellect, which was a part of soul, which was the part of the soul that knew right from wrong, which was capable of realizing something bigger than life. And where we have started to call intellect was at that time known as rational mind, rational thinking. And we'll have to talk a lot about that. if we care to, we will live forever. That which is alive cannot stop living. Will we return again? Most probably. Some living beings now will not return to the realm of living people. And among other things, it's possible for the soul to perish. Once those demons start to give us a little room to think, to live, then the reality of what is comes. We see that the merciless hydropas, which is an old word for time, that time is the biggest enemy, because things gone into time do not return. Time is gone. I believe it is my obligation, something that I owe, not a whim, an obligation, that each moment that passes, I am indebted to look at that moment and realize that it is given to me for a reason, that I must not throw it away. I must touch it. I must hold it close to me. That is not because I may wish to. That's because I have to. I must. And none of this means that we're to do this in a form of sadness. How wonderful. How wonderful. The idea of how wonderful has to be in the woof and warp of every thought. How wonderful. How rare. How extraordinary. How wonderful. As if we could run to each other and say, I want you to know me. I don't wish to hide from you. I want you to know me. I want to know you. What were your dreams like when you were 4 or 5? Who were you? Maybe if I ask you to remember, and you wish to remember, then it will happen again. So sometimes I'm told, yes, but you're always telling people that they should want, that they should want, that they should want this, want that. Have a dream, make it happen. And some of them are indeed. Make a life of plenty. Make a life of comfort. Make a life where there isn't a hunger. Today I heard an explanation that contemporary people, ourselves, our lives are jiggled by governments, by landlords, by employers, by famines, by illnesses, by the fear of what will happen tomorrow to all of us. And that as long as we are born into that condition, there is no freedom. It looks good in print. Free. No, not free. Free as long as, but that isn't freedom. So I ask people to be in touch with a dream that they may have. It doesn't have to be of career and finance, although that is very understandable, explicable, and needed. Somebody tell me that now that they've heard what was said, that they have an inexplicable desire, a passion, a phobia, a madness to remember the name of the Eternal with everything that they do. I say yes. Have that. Desire it. Desire it until it burns a hole in your mind. And if you want it that much, you'll have it. Is it consciousness? You'll have that. Awareness? Yes. Love? Whatever it is. Have we become so cornered that to have a dream, the first thing is, well, I'm getting along fine, my life is going fine now, I got a job. Maybe we have a dream to be a much more understanding and forgiving person than we are now. Maybe we have a dream to care for ourselves much more than we do now. Maybe we'll have a dream to look upon this planet and care for it and love it deeply. Because, you know, it is a small planet. It is not among the bigger planets, it's among the smaller planets. What could happen if millions of us really loved this planet? Loved each other, loved ourselves. Dare to have a dream. Like Stanley, dare to pick up that horn and desire more than anything in the world that beautiful music should come out of it. Because Stanley did. And John Coltrane did. Look inside ourselves and find where are the empty spots and proceed to fill them. And if you don't know how to fill them, ask how to fill them. And you may have to ask 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times. But that's not too much if you want the answer to something. Talking to one of us, this room, the people in it, were made. This was no accident that these people just walked down 28th Street and ran up the top floor of a building and here we are. It was made, put together, dreamt of, nurtured, for many, 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 many years. What's here? You could call it a think tank, where people think. And nurture each other. And not ignore one another. Because everyone here knows that this is a place where you can come and say, I am a fool, I am a madman, I am in love with the impossible and the unbelievable. And the chances are that the person next to you will touch your hand and say, yes, I know. What was that old book by Hermann Hesse? The Sign Outside, for madmen only. For madmen only. What do you think, Derek? What do you think?
I was thinking the answer to Dushan's question was very, very powerful and inspiring to me. It made me realize how little and infrequently I ask how I can help. And how that seems to be an evolutionary goal, or the evolution of a human being, at least the way I see it now, this idea of service that we speak about. And I just envisioned someone saying, how can I help? And really, the way it was put, from a wonderful attitude, from an attitude of how grateful I am to be here, and please let me do the very smallest thing to help in return. If one can have that attitude or that presence of mind, how, to me, that would be a beautiful life, and that would be something I aspire to, and something I don't do now. But the little and few times that I do feel that I am able to serve in some way, I feel more alive than any other times in my life. And I do feel thankful in those moments that the word useful always comes to me afterwards. I'm like, wow, thank you that I've been useful. And it's usually in a very small way. It's not monetary. Usually no one's giving me money for these call them acts. But they do have just a different feeling to them. And I was very much reminded of that in this answer of man, why man cannot do, and then the after kind of thought of that. Of asking in return how one can help. I want to be able to do that more. That's one thing. I was thinking of many things. Another thing that just comes to mind at the beginning of the talk tonight, the idea of forgetting oneself is presented. Could be minutes, could be years, and it struck my mind that I remembered a time in my life where I think I forgot myself for 5 years, or at least 4 years. And when I woke up, I didn't think I would ever find myself again. But I think that can happen in an extended period of time. One can be so disconnected with oneself. So it's very scary.
Do you want this strongly enough to do it?
I think so.
Yossi, what do you think?
The thoughts that came to this head were there was a moment where I thought of being alive, as Bill was speaking about being grateful for everything that comes in, and the doing is the grace of God, that life is by the grace of God, everything is by the grace of God, and that evolutionary process of like the harder things sort of that come to us. And I had the word that came, like, we're being corralled. It's like we're being, like, something is coming and we're shocked into where it is that we need to be going. And the processes of basically tuning in and being willing to go where we need to go, and basically, I don't think that it's living life and then doing acts of service, but that by tuning in, it's the whole life is a life of service. It's like everything that you do ultimately becomes you're serving by living and walking the path that you are supposed to walk and doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And that the tougher parts are basically things that are directing you towards that.
Do you believe that a force intelligent enough could expect something from you?
I don't know if I feel like I think that force is much bigger than that. I don't know if it really expects something of me. It's
Do you want something from you?
It demands.
Okay.
I think in long terms, it's just a matter of time. One will have to perform and do what one is expected to perform and do. One can resist. The more one resists, the more harsh the directing force will be. And eventually you'll have to give in and do what it is that you need to do, that you're demanded to do. I don't think there's really a
How
choice.
does one find out what this demand may be?
By listening.
To what?
I don't know, certain things that come from inside.
Mm-hmm.
I think I feel that it's all there, and by tuning in, you know what you need to do, and you know what is right, and you know what is wrong, and you either choose to go with that, or you choose to fight it because you think you know better. And
You read Ouspensky's Conscience?
no.
Worthwhile reading.
At some point, I guess, like you have to be who you are, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't run away from it. At some point, you just have to be it. And then it's quite easy. There's a relief in that. Not having to rebel. Just accepting it. It's easier.
Thank you. What do you think, Pamela?
I think there are levels of service that And we can all pretty much sound the same. We can say we're interested in an idea. But there are some people who are more surface than others. And there are assignments, so to speak, that are more transformative or more powerful than others. And I think as Derek was speaking, when people speak, you have a sense that they want to do more of that, whatever that looks like for each person. And I think it's important to try to describe what that service is like, to write about it for oneself, to keep a journal. Last night I saw a documentary on the monks in Burma so many years ago on HBO. And these thousands of monks, protesting in a country like that. And the way they looked. You can't duplicate that look of people who serve on that level. And I just find it something that it touches a part of one's soul. And that part of oneself wants to be like that, in whatever form is appropriate for what comes your way. And I do very much feel a sense of, like, you make this promise to be of service, and then it finds you, the it meaning the invisible, wherever it finds you. And, like what happened to me in Brazil almost, 18 years ago, when I made a promise to the indigenous people of this, large gathering of 700 tribal leaders. And they said that, people come to help and they disappear. It's not really serious. And I remember that moment of just standing there in front of all these leaders who I didn't really know specifically, and said, I'm not going anywhere. I make this promise for my life. And I think you have to make these when it's the right time or the right situation. And how many of these promises you make. That was a kind of a line in the sand which I crossed over, which I had crossed over many other times for many things. But that was an important one. Just like I made that commitment to doing this work, which gave me the capacity to make that kind of decision. And so I live that commitment. And what you love the most in your life is seeing that surface in others. And it is the most beautiful thing. And I feel in most of what I take on, I can barely do. I mean, I can do the work of, I think, probably 20 people. But I need help. Well, so you just stand there and you hope for the help. And the people here know Derek is helping me a lot with my writing, James, Alex, other people in other ways. And it's just, you just know when you take on this service, those who help you, you just feel so grateful. And I have indigenous people have just been here, and one of the people stayed on who's from India, in an area, and just trying to see if we can help him. He wants to go to school for journalism. It's totally expensive, and Columbia. But you sort of wish together you hope that maybe if it's not that particular thing, that maybe something else, and you see the power of things that we are used to, like education. There's a documentary at the River Museum called Zanskar, and it's showing these people in this remote area of China/Tibet, and they go over all these mountains for many days, almost being quite in danger of dying, for the monks to take these children to school. And the parents are giving up their children who are 6 years old and 10 years old, and weeping, but yet feeling so proud that their child can go up to the next octave of potential. It's an exquisite representation of this devotion to service, to that which is higher, which is greater. And for us, I think, in this country, how to undo our sense of complacency, of having things that, unfortunately, because we grew up with all these things, it is very hard for us to know gratitude. I recommend this film to everyone. I think it might be playing 1 or 2 more times. And the filmmaker, he almost died every day in this area. The monks almost died every day. And yet they persevered, and now there are these 15 children who have been given the privilege of, as Gil was saying before, of life. They've given the gift of life on another level. And I know that for myself, my strength is gained from here, from Gil and the others. That is my power, and I use it well. But I'm very aware of that. And I think it's important for all of us, and I'm sure of knowing where one gained one's life, from one's family to who in your life gave you that transfusion of power which allows you to, in a sense, go on past this life and not disintegrate. And those are the beings, whether it's people or people who are no longer here on this earth, that you breathe into your soul every day, the life force that they gave you and continue to give you. And that's happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela Sue.
Is it time?
Why not? Why not?
I was asked to do this publicly tonight, and I'll just preface this act by saying that last year I came across in some writings the idea to give away 10% of what you make. So I started doing that. And I really had a great time doing it, and also found, and the writings said this, but I found it to be true, and it seemed sort of miraculous that even if you give away 10% of what you make, you don't notice that you have 10% less. You just keep going the same as you did before. So since this year I sold an apartment, the checks are a little bigger this year, and I'm really pleased to be able to have this opportunity to present Tribal Link Foundation with a little donation. Thanks, Pam. Thanks for all the great work you do with the foundation. Beautiful. I'm glad you made it.
I'm
See-
very, very.
Maybe this could help the kid go to journalism school for a couple months. Columbia's pretty expensive.
It had never occurred to me until I read it, of living at a self-imposed poverty level, as if the message we give to our own spirit is, I need every cent I've got because I'll die without it. I need this. I can't, I need all of it. As opposed to somehow saying, I can give part of this away and still live. I am not operating at my last breath. I have enough to spare. And I think when we believe that we have enough to spare, that we are people who can earn enough to have something to spare, that it'll become more of our life. I found that far too many people, and myself for God knows how long, living under the idea, I have nothing to spare. And soon I decided to break that. And what Sue says is true. Is true. True Sue? True Blue Sue? Who? True Blue Sue? Oh, forget it. Good God, no. We don't feel more poor for it. Because the indelible truth comes back to the mind that says, I am a guy who can give away money. He was talking, I am a guy who can give away money. I can't be too destitute. I can't be too much broken down. I can give money. That's why I encourage everyone, give what makes sense to you. It works. It works for me and Sue. Have you been wondering who this guy is? You have not. Don't wonder what she is. She's part of the decoration. I think she came here to fix the phone. This is my dear, dear friend, Scott. Well, there it goes, Scott. If he wants to add on the rest of it. But say hello, and I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. That's pretty sweet.
When you sing, I feel that you love me. Very, very strongly, very powerful.
Absolutely. It's uninhibited. There's no barriers. It's open. It's completely free. And it's not directed to you specifically. It's radiated. It's like Sue playing. when she plays, it's not directed to any particular individual. It's the gift that she has that radiates through her and through her instrument, which happens to be the sax or the flute or the clarinet. But that goes for anybody. It's how the energy comes through you, through your gifts that you've been given, and how you interpolate those gifts within yourself and how you express them. And it could be very easily just walking down the street looking at somebody, just smiling at them. And New York is a perfect place for that, because half the time people look away to me. What do they want? But there are times when you do look at somebody and you get a response, you get a smile back, because you're open. And because you are open, you're not asking anything from anybody. You're just happy who you are. And you have that energy. It's not inhibited. There's no restriction. It's just, I'm happy. I'm here, just walking down the street. You smile, and that's all. Very simple. And there's some people that are receptive to it. It depends where they are in the moment in time, where they are in their life, and where they are in their day. But that's what it is with the singing. If it's uninhibited, if there's no restriction, it's just given freely. And then it's up to you to interpret it how you receive it.
A person can tell that you really love what you're doing up there.
Absolutely. Because it's a gift. I'm very clear with that. And that gift is not something that I have specifically. It's from an energy. You were referring to that earlier in your conversation about how that everybody has a gift here. Everybody has gifts, I should say. And it's up to us to figure out what that is. And that could take an entire lifetime to figure that out. Once you connect with that and you give that freely, because those gifts are given from an energy larger than us. But through all that energy, it becomes part of the collective. So when you're using those gifts to your best ability, you become part of that collective. You make that energy stronger. And because the collective is now stronger, because you're part of it, then you become stronger. And it feeds off itself. It becomes self-generating. It's like making music. It's not about, we talked about this, but not to a long conversation, because it doesn't need to be talked about through a long conversation. It's experienced. When you go up and perform, or when you're doing a job, for example, if you're doing the simplest of tasks, putting books together, for example, for maybe a presentation, and if you've got 5 people and there's 5 stacks of paper, and everybody's got one job to put one piece together, and everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction, putting that booklet together, for example, and it all comes together and it's done in a positive manner, and the task is completed, you all feel good because it's done to that place where everybody's trying to make a positive task happen. And when it happens, you're like, wow, it's really neat. You feel good about it. But if everybody's not in that same place at the same time, if somebody's like, I don't want to be here, they're not into it at that moment, then that collective energy can't make it to the best possible result that it could be. But that's like making music, same principle. It's all connected.
When Sue told me Scott was going to come down tonight, wow, it was really, wow, what good fortune. I'm going to give away one of Scott's little secrets. When you go to see him work, usually works that I've seen in 42nd Street theaters, and got a beautiful band, and Sue is part of the band, got a few recordings out. I had a birthday, and the lights and the candle, and Scott brought out a cake. He does this for everyone he knows that comes down to see him, there's 3, 4, 5 people in the audience that he remembers and he does this to, and the people in that room love this guy because he's doing something that says, I care. He's not saying, how lucky you are to come to see me, I've got a week in New York, then I'm gone. He's really giving people a beautiful experience. And that's what I call going the mile and the little over. Doesn't have to be remembering your birthday and remembering your cake. Doesn't have to. But it does. Beautiful to see you. Feel you come back as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to make a comment on just to connect something that Scott said with something that Yossi said when Scott was talking about finding whatever gift it is that you have and then using that gift. And of course, if you play music, you're lucky because the gift is real obvious. But as you mentioned, not all gifts are so obvious, and sometimes it takes a long time to find out what it is. But everyone has one. And when Yossi finished his talk, saying that, talking about discovering who you are or finding out who you are, I think that's the same thing. Is who you are is what your gift is, really, which is interesting because you realize that who you are is something that is who you are becomes what you give away, which is a neat way of looking at it. And I thought, so many of the truths that we talk about in this room are paradoxes, and to say, I submit to this, I submit to opening myself and letting God tell me what I should do next, or letting the universe guide my movements. And then some people could interpret that as saying, well, I don't want to give that up. I'm me, I have my own ideas, what does the universe know? And yet, as Yossi said, when you do submit to the idea that you cannot do something, that you must surrender and receive what your essence is from the universe, and working with that, whatever it is, it's not a limiting thing. It's actually a completely empowering thing, because it's as if there's a daffodil, and the daffodil doesn't, open up its flowers and say, I wish I was a lion, The daffodil's really happy to be a daffodil. And the lion doesn't want to be a frog, and everything is what it is, and that's the whole totally amazing, beautiful power of it, is that everything is exactly what it is. And so if we can become the same, instead of being daffodils that wish they were lions, instead, be the daffodil. And then I think we'll discover lots of power and lots of truth in that. That could be a bumper sticker too. Be the daffodil.
Don't be the lion.
Maybe I can ask you, is it easy being green?
I've heard tell that it ain't.
Dushan.
I remember years ago at a meeting at Albert's house, Pamela said something that I took away and kept in front of myself for years. She was talking about discovering the moments in the day which are the food for the soul. And the way this man is, when he gets obsessed with an idea, he begins to practice and to see where this idea is taking him. And so I was watching this obsession of mine of what it means to have food for the soul. And in that time, in the beginning, it was the beautiful things that I used to neglect of my day. You know, the moment when I just am present enough to hear the wind, or to feel the wind on my skin, or to see the sunset, or to see a beautiful child, or something so on that level. And then that started to change. I began to find food for the soul in the moments where I'm actually, because in these moments when I am present to this outward beauty, the demons have no say. The demons are cut off. So I found that very attractive. And I began to study to see what enables me more to keep the demons out. And I think with the last experience that I have, that we have to make it easier to ourselves. We have to use everything we have to simplify our life. Because the more we make ourselves busy, the more our minds are on some things that don't really matter much to our internal evolution, the less we're going to think about it, and the more we are going to be an easier prey for the demons. We're not going to have the guard up. Specifically, I'm talking about I had a 10-day vacation in Hawaii. And me and my wife, we decided that we will unplug. No phone, no computer, no emails, no texts, no news, no nothing. Nothing. In the morning was silence till noon every day. Practice yoga, meditations, no speaking. And in the first few days it felt like a ship. My mind felt like a ship that was just, cruising, and then the steam was cut off. And this ship continued because of the momentum to cruise for a few more miles. But then, a few days in, the mind started to settle down. Literally as if the steam was taken off. And the way I noticed the biggest change came when the lights were turned off and I went to sleep. Because in my usual life, when I go to sleep, there is millions of imagery, words, emotions misfiring in any which way. Back there, nothing. I couldn't get my mind to think about anything so I can fall asleep. So I found myself lying for nights, completely surprised that I have nothing to think about, because I didn't have any junk coming my way all day long. And I loved it. And I thought of all of you and how I wanted to share this with you. Because by accident or not, I discovered how easy it is to make my life easier. My practice was so good. That food for the soul was in these 10 days, because whatever, maybe it's just because of Hawaii, but I don't think so. I think I put a lot of effort into being there, keeping that guard up, having a really wonderful time. And it was great. And now the same thing is happening. I'm back, and the ship is still cruising, but pretty soon it will. I'll be back into the usual grind, as they say. It was a great experience, and can be done. Can be done. So that's that. That's what I think.
You're so generous. I will take you up on it. The next time you go to Hawaii, take me with you. I can't wait. You going next month?
No, next year. Probably.
I'll go too.
Monkey see, monkey do. James, I think of you so often because I have an inner misfitting. The terminology God does not come to me too easily. It doesn't seem right. I'm always thinking I should have used another word. When I do use the other words, I know inside myself I'm saying the same thing. I read one particular ancient Greek, and they said about him that he was not Christian, that his writings are not considered Christian writings. Every other word he mentions is God. He does not incorporate further the Christian myth. He doesn't. So that goes through my mind a lot. I can't say I readily and easily accept the myth. The majority of writers that I read do. I don't. And you've mentioned your belief system here. I try to understand the writers, and I try to understand myself, and at times I try to understand you too. But I am not that, I can't say easy, familiar. It's not the word God is not my first word of choice. Yet I know that whatever I call that, it's the same thing. Can you throw some light in this direction?
I was thinking about that tonight when you used it, naturally. And I was thinking how it's completely understandable to use it. And yet at the same time, for me, in some way, it gets in the way. And maybe it's just because of, all the occasions when others have used the word, and I felt like that was something that has distracted them rather than brought them closer. And I would say I don't really have a belief system. If anything, I could say try, and I say try because there is some effort to it, to just be completely open and wed myself with the idea that I don't know, and that I probably will never know, and that that's okay. And for myself, I think of it less that I become aware of the presence of God in everything. I think of it more as just letting myself get out of the way. So it's not the focus on where is God in my life. It's how do I get Jim out? And I was thinking of the same image. I don't think I had a daffodil. I had a daisy or something, but it was the same image of the flower and how. If I can just accept being whatever flower I am and not trying to be some other flower or trying to be a more beautiful flower or a more scented flower. And how when I move more in that direction, there's like something that comes in that feels like I'm going home. So beautiful the way you spoke tonight about all these things, because I feel it helped us all go or get some image of what it is. It's somehow strange that as humans somehow we have this dilemma. It's a dilemma being kind of on the cusp of evolution, that somehow we got designed with his mind and with his ego, and we don't. I think of it as we're still in the process of becoming who we are. We're like some creature that hasn't really quite, fingers haven't quite formed.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that amorphic quality, that openness, there's the possibility for doing things that are horrendously horrific, and there is the possibility for doing things that are completely sublime.
Yeah, these questions are on my mind a lot. A lot. I know that even more so since I moved full-time to PA. Something happened. I'm hooked hooked into something that I haven't been hooked into before. I would say that ideas like this are on my mind most of the time. A day doesn't pass that I don't go to Thomas's tree and hold it, and to some extent there's energy from me going down into the earth. I realize that. Down. I'm holding the tree and I'm picking up so that there's energy going upwards as well as downwards. I don't understand it well, but I do this quite a few times a day. I planted a tree for a guy that I work with here, and he's no longer with us, but the tree is. And Joe Caputo's tree, the same thing. And Sue's father's tree. I'm doing something, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that there's an arrow going up with the tree and an arrow going down. I find myself walking on the grass to really sensing balance. Not just walking, because I'm not going in place, I'm sensing balance, how the balance moves up the hill and down the hill. Do that a bit. I come to realize that I don't really know the pets, 2 dogs and 2 cats. I suspect very strongly they are not just pets. There's something else alive there that I communicate with very, very, very strongly. The relationship, hi, this is my cat, hi pussy, how you feeling, here's some chopped meat or whatever. This is an exchange with some being that has a different body shape than I have. And that these 2 beings are saying, we have X amount of time to be here. We must use this time. We must value this time. This time is precious. And people I have known who are deceased, uncles, aunts, I believe that a deceased being needs mention, needs remembering, needs to be able to anchor, yes, there's somebody still from that from that world of matter that remembers me and is able to connect, that I haven't left that. I'm still there and here. And I'm able to realize within myself to some degree, at present I am here, but I will be there at some point. And that I have an invisible family of entities that know me and await me. And that these entities, because they realize my caring, and I realize their caring, at times I amaze myself by saying, I cannot believe that my life is this good. I can't believe, amazing, I can't believe it. My life is that good, it's wonderful. And of course, if I can feel that way and think that way, I'm sure everyone else can too. that in all probability it's part of our heritage, our expectancy as human beings to walk around this small planet feeling entirely, this is wonderful. No, I don't have to be long and blue. I can feel this way being short and gray or whatever. But for me, one of those kids from the Bronx was the third kid. I was there too. I was the kid who Bill Scheider said, "You don't practice, man." Well, Bill and Stan and I practice now. I practice my ass off now. Because the people here in this room have made me realize this is my horn. Wow. Yeah. It's these beings have collectively given me a wonderful life, are in process of giving me a wonderful life. I owe just about everything I have and can think of to the people here, to the questions they've asked of me. I thought about that question a lot for years and years, because you've been asking me for years and years. Yeah. What do you mean a man can't do? Suddenly it became so very, very clear. A man by himself can do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Somebody who hasn't spoken.
Marcus's thinking is being here is quite remarkable. Mark had been here for a couple months, and just here, the energy, being in his presence, really feels remarkable. Mark, and I just haven't felt this in quite some time. Mark recently went to Brazil, meeting a guidebook. There's a strong family sense in Brazil. When you go there, you'll get it. You won't realize it. Mark, when he left Brazil, he was flying home. Just took out his journal and started writing about all the people in this room and about how much he had missed them and how much they had all helped his life. And then Mark got the sense of what it was like in Brazil. And a lot of what Mr. Gill was talking about tonight really resonates with what's going on in my life the last few years, especially the power of the universe and the power of practice and the power of being able to ask for things, and what really is one's dream. And this person's his life was changed a lot. Back in January, he lost a job, and he thought it was his dream job, and it was everything he wanted. But then, through the suggestion of Mr. Gill, he wrote down exactly what he wanted to do, and it was that shock and that push from Mr. Gill to do that. And it was completely different what Mark had written down than what he had. And he realized that he was in this prison, and that what he was doing wasn't exactly what Mark wanted to be doing. And from that, and from the suggestion of other people, Mark started meditating and really reaching out to the universe. What is it? What does Mark want? And how can Mark be more creative? How can he create this idea, this business that he wants on his own? And he had great suggestions from Dushan about how to meditate and ask. And Mark wasn't sure how to do that, but it was a shock and a push from his good friend to do that. And now, 3 months later, it's quite remarkable where things seem to happen almost the same day Mark starts meditating for them in the morning. He asks for something, he gets it. And a lot of it has to do with practice. Mark's been doing this work 4 or 5 years. He practices it every day. Morning, sensing exercise, the reading, the writing, and helping. And so the gift that he's gotten out of the last 3 months is, when you work in a corporate life, you have this false safety net, this mockery, and it requires some type of schizophrenia where you have to be a different person in this life. But now himself out on his own, he gets to align himself with the work he's doing and be himself in all capacities. And that is quite remarkable. So things have really worked out. You know, Mark's business is flourishing, and he thought that, you know, he's really had a good chance to beat back the fear and the practice and asking for practice. And really, one cannot do anything on their own. Mark's had to ask for so much over the last few months. And he's had quite the most remarkable 3 months of his life, where he thought, you know, he woke up one day irrationally thinking, oh, he's not going to be able to afford food. But, you know, just the fear, and he's able to really put fear in its place of what it is, and being able to set an intention for what that is. And so the gift that the universe is really giving Mark, allowing Mark to create the space to expose himself to the universe, to allow these things to enter into his life, and to trust it, and to trust the process, and to see that creativity can happen, and through practice more can happen, and that what once Mark thought was his dream was actually just wasn't, and it just went poof, and that when something that turned out to be bad news was one of the best things that could ever have happened to him. And so the lesson there is that whenever something now happens, Mark thinks it's really bad, or he thinks, wow, this could actually have been the best opportunity to ever happen. And that's to really challenge himself whenever he's thinking about that. And it culminated, he went surfing in Brazil, and he had a friend with him who challenged him to go out to where the waves were. Mark had never surfed before. He had to paddle out by these rocks that were 5 meters from the rock to get out past the waves breaking by him. Mark looked out and thought, never going to do it. And then his friend, his girlfriend actually said, all right, you ready to paddle out? It was on day 3. And Mark said, no. He goes, all right, follow me. I was like, this is just never going to do it. And Mark thought of something Albert had said that really rings in his head. So every day you should do something you're afraid of. And then Mark just looked out there and thought, I'm going to die or I'm going to paddle out. So then he paddled out. And, after paddling out, he just couldn't feel his arms. And all these irrational thoughts, sharks, swept out to sea, every board's going to break in your head. And none of that happened. And after a few times, Mark actually caught away. It was one of the most remarkable feelings he's ever had in his life. And he's really inexplicable, the feeling of catching away. It made the entire trip, everything worth it. And now he just thinks of the name of that beach whenever he thinks he can't do something. And all of that now, it just feels, and so even Mark thinks like how he looked back 4 months ago and thought he had everything. He'll probably 4 months from now look back and think, this is, he's fooling himself again. But at least he knows it now. He's like thinking about it. And he is embracing it, embracing this more creative path, and trying to align himself more with what the universe is giving. And really understanding the gifts he's been given from all of these people, and he tries to give it back as much as possible. Anytime someone asks for something, he just tries to give it away as much as possible to create that network and his place in the universe.
Thank you. You walked in here with a strong desire to learn how to live?
Yes. Mark felt very bankrupt then. Directionless, rudderless, just kind of a shell of a person. It's quite remarkable, the transformation that has happened. Just really a short amount of time.
Because you wanted it. You wanted it. And you did what you could to get it. Part of it was coming here, working, being. People get what they want. Whenever you hear somebody saying something, you can ask yourself or even ask them, well, what? How come you brought yourself to where you are? Albert.
I must say about Mark that I remember the first time I met him. And I look at him today, and the transformation is incredible.
He doesn't move too much.
Doesn't move at all. And he's young, he's like a young lion. Good work, man. When I started, I was also puzzled by this. Men can do. And I've done so many things in my life, I didn't understand it. But then with the years, it's very true that we can't do anything if we don't remember ourselves. We always want to be comfortable. I heard this guy talking about planes, and he told me that in the 30s they tried to develop planes, and every time they would go to 950 miles an hour, planes would blow and shake, and the pilots would stop the whole thing and come back, and usually they would die. Until this one guy, he figured, what's going on? The plane is doing well. You reach one point, and everything starts to shake and to move. And years pass, and they did not really understand the speed of light or something. I don't know. He was a technical guy. I didn't catch the whole thing. But then this one pilot said, you know what? It's going to shake, it's going to move, and I'm going to just go. Give it everything I got. And he reached this 950, whatever, and he pressed, and he went all the way, and he checked, and he moved, and he checked, and he moved, and then into this, what they have now. When he talked to me about this, I'm like, this is my life. I live in the middle of the carpet. And every time life pushes me to the edge, I do everything to go back into the middle. Because it's very uncomfortable. It's the plane moving and shaking. And we usually get afraid. Fear comes in. And we can't do anything. So what do we want to do? We want to go back to where we always are. But if you pray a lot and you practice and you ask God, come on, I came here to do something. Give me some more, this is what I pray for. I can take it, give it to me. And sometimes, if you're lucky, God will put you in a position right on the edge of the carpet. And you can't go anywhere. They tie your hand, they put you in the chair, you have to look in your fear. And this is, I think, where a point of a person grows up, and understand that fear does not live inside. The fear is from the universe. It's external. So he goes on the surfing, and he has all this fear, and it doesn't really exist. He goes, he paddles, and he has the best time of his life. Look, you always talk about, I came here, I chose where I was born. I was born into where I chose. I lived the life, the experiences. I probably did half of my life. And I really hope that I would get it. I really do. And I know it's not going to be a walk in the park. There is an element that is extremely important, because whatever happens to us, if it's bad, we always, come on, we're not lucky, we're not doing well. If it's great, we get happy, and then we get used to it. And there's always a sense that everything is a rehearsal, and later on life will start, which is ridiculous.
And this is how we don't remember ourselves, because it's coming. So we live not there and not here, so we're not in the present because it's very difficult for us. And we don't have the muscles. I find attention a muscle. If I'm in good shape, I hold my attention for hours. If I'm in bad shape, I forget everything. So it's how do you keep daily. So the practice of a singer or a saxophone player, who really makes it? The people who practice. So at the end of the day, I think that we are what we do, and we are what we say, not what we think, and not what we feel, and not what we read. And it's very simple to keep it this way. And at the end of the day, God will bring you to the point where everything is shaking, and you got to press the gas and say, I don't know, maybe this theory is right, maybe not, but what have I got to lose? I stopped 1,000,000 times and went back to the middle of the carpet so many times, it doesn't work for me. And it makes sense, as you said, this is, I think, the most important thing you said today, it makes sense only if you understand that. Everything is an experience, everything is given to us, everything meant to be, we ask for it, we plan this life, and still we don't accept it and surrender fully. This is, I think, my lesson. And the gift, we all have gifts, but in order for us to really, I mean, I don't have a gift that is obvious. It's not obvious, I don't know what it is. I mean, I have some little gifts, I have some talents, but I think listening to the intelligence of the heart, I think it's a term that I read in one of the books. I have to find this book, and it will solve your dilemma of the heart. And it's called The Intelligence of the Heart by the Egyptian. And you got to learn how to connect to this and listen to your heart, and it will tell you what you have to do and what do you really want.
Remember Castaneda is saying the path with the heart.
Yes.
It's in there. It's
Yes.
the heart has to do.
And thank you. Tonight was a great talk.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. Well, Alexandra.
Mr. Gill.
Excuse me?
Mr. Gill. What a beautiful night I've been in New York. Heard so many things tonight that reminded me of what practice really is encompassed of. It's remembering to use tools to find your road in to yourself. On Monday when I spoke to you, you threw out that very simple thing that is always the road back to self, which is gratitude. And our demons that cover our true self tend to come in on the coattails of want and not being, and less than, or not as comfortable as. There's always a negative. And within the realm of gratitude is this incredible golden glow that empowers. As you remember that you are small and you are nothing without the grace of whomever. Be it God or your higher self. Each other's well wishes, exuberance, all these incredible things. Service is another road in. Derek throughout service. Yossi throughout the remembering of what your talent is and putting it to use, becoming of service through that. Sue reminded us tonight what it is to give something that we may not have imagined we'd ever be able to give, or occurred to us we could give. But in that gesture, enables somebody else's service to come to fruition, which brings us right directly back to what it is to try to do something alone and how futile that is, and how it takes a school to wake up. It takes a school to give a teacher a voice. And it takes that voice to remind a new student that he can sit still, and then his fellow workers can show that student that he can not only learn how to become anything he wants to, but he can access magic and a certain level of power that without it we become sleepwalkers, and we join that which covers the earth and not that which believes that it can be exalted. So it's a pretty magical night to be in this chair, and I'm very grateful to everybody here for making this room what it is.
I know you didn't say the word, but I heard it, called intent. Because the intent means, regardless of what the plan is, regardless of what the dream is, what are you going to do with the dream when it happens? Because it's in that vortex of the intent. Well, somebody may say, well, I want to be a prize fighter, and I want the golden belt, and I'm going to put it on, I'll be rich and wonderful. And for somebody else, that championship may mean a chance to go out into the world of kids who don't have anything and say, look, here's the belt, I did it, you can do it. And maybe somebody will be infused by it. That it doesn't depend so much on what we get, but what we intend to do with what we get, and what we do with what we get. We can do so many things for so many people. We may want something from a selfishness for ourselves. But once we go past thinking, what can I do for the world in general with what I've got for myself, then everything can change. I was so touched, I think yesterday, there's a woman who apparently lost her leg in a motorcycle accident. And a number of years ago, still a young woman. And she went through, I think it was 24 surgeries. So now she's got a false leg, a prosthesis. And it looks like something metallic that comes out and the toe turns it. Obviously, it doesn't look like she's got a false leg. And with this, she has become a running champion. She is such a running champion that she's on the United States running team. She's running all over the world. The world has noticed, and there's the example of a little girl who's 10 years old who lost her leg to cancer, and she's just beginning the road of putting on the prosthesis and trying to walk in this. And she's saying, I know that if she can do it, I can do it. That's what the striving is for. When you get from A to B, once you've gotten to B, you can either say, how terrific I am, I'm here, wow. Or you can turn around to people who are still at A and say, come on, I'm here. You can do it. That's what makes it all so worthwhile. What you can do for other people with the gifts that you received yourself. Thank you, Alexander. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you here in a while. And there's 3 of us missing. Johnny is in, where's Johnny? Istanbul or someplace. He's giving a talk. And Michael is in Washington, I think. And there's somebody else, Michael. David. He's in Florida.
Yeah.
He is. He went on vacation in Florida. Can you imagine that? I'm going to get him to promise to take me too. Yes.
Is it my turn, Gil?
If you wanted
I
to be.
figured I'm going to raise my hand.
I thought you just wanted to leave the room.
No, not yet. Well, I just like to mention that it's nice to sit next to James. That I think I met James 35 years ago, this time of the year. So it's been a long roller coaster ride, and it's nice to sit next to him. And I was struck by, in order to think about ineffable things, he has to take James out from this ineffable being that we're all wrestling. So that struck me as something funny and biting. And there was a exhibition at the Morgan Library. There was a medieval manuscripts of Catherine of the Cleves in Utrecht in 1452. And it was 97 pages of manuscripts. And every page there was a devil sitting somewhere. So I guess the God and devil, ineffable, they always coexist together. And I find that my own mind is like that too. I'm not grateful enough, and I don't do enough gratitude prayer. And this evening's meeting with the generosity of Sue and all others, maybe I begin to do some gratitude prayers for myself.
I think in the ancient Greek text it's called the eternal prayer, but it goes on all the time, never stops. It's one way to keep the madness from coming into the mind.
And during your communication, you mentioned that time was the enemy. And I thought that time can be my friend as well. So I like to think time is my friend.
Thank you for letting me see you again when we work. You were in the early groups. I never ever see my plant without thinking of you. Joan was in charge of plants at my loft. We're going back. I don't want to tell you how long we're going back because maybe you can't take it. I can barely take it myself. But Joan took care of that plant, and that plant has 30 years old, the plant.
It's 2 plants now.
Now it's 2 plants.
We had to divide it. It got too big.
And soon it's getting time to divide it again because it's getting that big. And Mark has given his word that those discs are now ready.
I have. Done. Yes.
Now there's still Mark here we haven't heard.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a child, I believed in God wholeheartedly. It was second nature. And as a young adult and adolescent, I think I searched for him everywhere, lost him somehow. And as a man, I feel I see or understand God in the invisible and the unknown. The best parts of my life have been in not knowing what is going to happen, in experiencing what is life. It is unknown. It is the art of living in the unknown. And it seems wondrous.
What happens when it doesn't feel good, or it scares, or the worst happens, or something? What do you do then?
You have to put on the gas, I guess.
That's the only way it works.
You also have to trust that if you have that concept of the invisible or God or what it is that's with you, that they're really there with you. They're a part of your existence. So your fear is irrational. And if you can just separate out this irrational part, this just fear, just mind stuff, isn't intelligence of the heart. It is words, other people's words, usually. But jumping, throwing oneself on the ground, surrender. That's the
Somebody may run into it themselves. Maybe not, but somebody may. That there's a part of the game that I spin in. It's that if I come to accept the greatness, the silence, the inexplicable, the invisible, if I come to accept that more, I'll be lost. It'll swallow me, it will eat me, and it's frightening. It scares me. Yet another part of mine says, no, for the first time, you really find yourself. And the other part of mine that's fear says, no, it'll eat me. I'll be gone. There'll be no more left of what's me. Yet I realize that what I'm calling me right now is very, very far from being me. I don't think we ever, ever, ever get through struggling. You concur. Hey, don't use words like that. Say something nice. Can't trust you. Oh, yeah, Hollywood people are saying concur.
I differ with you.
You differ with me. I'm
do.
glad.
I think if you truly become one with the life energy, you won't have any wants. You won't have any fears.
Part of me believes that.
I know it. I believe it.
And part of me at this point doesn't quite believe it. And it's scared because each day it's there more and more and more.
Right.
Now it starts, the moment I wake up my eyes in the morning, boom, it starts, the prayer. And the prayer goes on and on. And with the prayer, the breathing. Because the breathing is connected to the reality, to the prayer, to the floating. And I do, and I do, and I look. 2 hours have passed and I've been in bed praying and breathing and floating. And it's like I almost feel I could get out of bed without putting my feet on the floor. And I know that there's more coming. And it frightens me. Yeah. If I start to bark, give you a dog biscuit. People, thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you all. Bless all of us. 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 Bless all of us.